Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Xbox Casuals, the Xbox podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Derrigan. Alongside me, as always, is the all-white, all-digital Josh Finney.
Jesus Christ. That is not okay.
I couldn't think of anything else, I guess. Man. I'm looking at this stuff. I don't know what, gotta be part of the story, man.
I don't think saying digital all white is the way to go.
Oh man, that seems like we're part of another thing that doesn't.
That sounds like we're part of a corner of the internet we don't want to be a part of.
Yes, but are unfortunately all too familiar with because we are on Twitter.
Yep.
So, hi Josh, how are you?
I'm good, Corey. It is about to start storming outside, so for anybody who hears a lot of noise on my end, it is the sound of hail outside. Yeah. And maybe a tornado siren. So, just so we're clear on that. It's springtime in Texas.
Springtime in Texas. Sounds like a country song waiting to happen.
And it pretty much is. Like, all that requires it is, for, you to buy crappy beer, sit on a dirt road, have a girlfriend who leaves you, and, a dog. And that's about it. Those are, like, the core requirements for a song about Texas, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you can go anywhere from there.
Football.
Well, Josh.
Well, Corey.
I don't know anything about country music.
That's okay. I know a little too much about country music.
But what I do know is that we're here to talk about Xbox.
We are here to talk about Xbox. The good, the bad, kind of ugly.
Yeah, a lot of I don't know, it's weird. Like a lot of non-stories, or stories that we kind of knew were happening already and kind of confirmed or whatever, I don't know, man. It's a weird. Look, Xbox isn't causing any controversy, so no one's talking about it, okay?
It's true. Nobody has been, at Xbox companies, nobody has been fired or laid off this week. And, we're also not, putting games on other platforms this week. So
not this week. Nope.
Not this week. That's in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Well, Well, all right. Let's do this again, Josh. A lot of non-stories, a lot of, no controversy. But Josh, what did happen this past week or 2 weeks ago? I met Major Nelson.
You did. You went to PAX East.
I did. So speaking of PAX, Josh, a lot of indies there. About 90% of them not coming to Xbox.
Yeah, so it's been a topic of conversation around the community, and I don't think they're missing a lot of things, because like when I look at a lot of the games that tend to miss Xbox or like are timed exclusive, because remember, Xbox buys a lot of timed exclusivity when it comes to indies, right? When I look at games that or indies that don't come to Xbox a lot, like most of the time, one, they're either not higher profile, which like that shouldn't be a thing, right? Like, but with smaller studios, your resources are more condensed. A lot of times there's a lot of shovelware on these other platforms. I feel like Xbox, there is shovelware, but maybe not nearly as much. Like the eShop is atrocious.
That's true.
The Nintendo seal of quality, guys, they just let anything on there. A lot of hentai games on there.
Yes, Hentai Rush 3. I'm so excited to play that.
Steam is pretty bad about it. PlayStation's like kind of somewhere in the middle, but I feel like Xbox like actually has some decent quality control. The only time that it annoys me when a game skips is like there's two recent ones. One of which was on Xbox's stage in 2022 at the summer showcase. I'm forgetting the name. Oh my god, now I'm forgetting the name of it. Erebon, I think. Is like now not coming to Xbox right away for something.
Like game that was clearly part of the ID at Xbox program, and then they kind of came out and said that they're not coming to Xbox?
No. That's the other one I was going to get to. So this one is no longer coming to Game Pass, is what it is.
Okay.
Baby Robot Games has confirmed Erebon Shadow Legacy has been canceled for Game Pass. It is still coming to Xbox though. The one that I was thinking, I can't remember the name of it. There was another one that was pretty clearly part of the ID at Xbox program. It was promoted as part of it. They got money as part of it. And then they announced that, nope, we're done. It is not coming to Xbox anymore, at least right away. There's been two differing accounts on this. One is that it's not coming at all. One is that it's just the demo that isn't coming. So because they made a choice to like optimize. Either way, I think it's kind of shitty. The demo I don't really care about, but I think if you're going to be a studio that takes money from a company, you need to release on that platform first, or at least same day as everyone else. Like Microsoft, I don't think would give two shits if you released on, unless you signed an agreement. They won't care if you release on other platforms the same day. I mean, we've seen games that weren't planned for Xbox suddenly get announced as coming to Game Pass, and that's about the only way you get them. Sea of Stars is one that comes to mind. Sea of Stars and Aedan Chronicle. The Aedan Chronicle games are other ones, because those were, of course, all funded through Kickstarter for specific platforms, and then Xbox comes in and is like, yo, here's Game Pass deal. This all kind of coincides with what we've been hearing from indie developers. There is a story going around currently from the Slay the Spire devs that Game Pass deals and Epic Store deals have pretty much dried up, quote unquote. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I look at the indies that have come recently and will be coming this year, and I'm like, are we really sure? I think they're just being a little bit more selective in the games that are getting those offers. Like, hey, we'd rather have less games come to the service because, one, they have the entire Activision catalog now to play with. Two, you and I have been saying for a long time this was going to happen eventually once they consistently had first-party support.
Right.
And from May onwards, they've got like probably 6 or 7 first-party games coming to the service this year, at least. There's a lot. So, in addition to the entire Activision back catalog, so like, yeah, they're going to be a little bit more selective probably with the deals they've got, and some of the remaining ones they've got this year are pretty important for them. I know they're pushing Aedan Chronicle. They're going to be pushing Stalker really hard. They've only got that as an exclusive for a few months, 3 months. Replaced is supposed to come out this year. Today, the game page went live. I know it's April Fool's Day, but it did go live on Xbox.com. The game page for Team Cherry's Hollow Knight Silksong.
I know a lot of people are excited.
It's been almost 2 years since we saw it last.
What, during a Nintendo Direct, I think.
Nope, it was during the Xbox show in 2022. The last time we saw Silksong, we saw it debut at a Nintendo Direct. But the last time we actually saw it, summer 2022 at the Xbox show, when they announced it was going to be coming day one to Game Pass. Unless I'm just completely forgetting something from the last 2 years. Now you're making me look.
Sorry, Josh.
You're making me Google this really quickly.
Sorry, Josh.
This is unforgivable. How dare you? How dare you?
I am sorry. I'm a terrible person. That's okay.
Yep. Nope. The last time that we saw it was in June 2022 at the Xbox show. So, Sony did confirm in September 2022 the game was going to come to PS4 and PS5. So,
nice.
Yes. So, I'm fascinated.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated by, like, we hear that indies are like skipping and this and that, and yet I almost feel like the indie support has never been greater from not just ID at Xbox. Like, yeah, the Game Pass deals are probably going to dry up. Like, let's be honest, that was never a super sustainable source, but those deals did what they were supposed to. Like, they were saying like, oh, the gold rush is over. I think the gold rush is over for the Epic Store. Like, those deals didn't seem to pan out at all. But I don't think the Game Pass deals were necessarily bad. We've heard for every developer, the Slay the Spire devs may be saying this, but like, take a look at, oh my God, was it No More Robots?
Yeah.
Is that the studio I'm thinking of, who make really small games? They just put out their latest game on Game Pass. They've put out like their last 3 of them on there. And they said with each one, like, their games sell better and better. and their player counts go up, and they're like, yeah, we're profitable off like one day from being on Xbox. So that's something like I think you have to take into I think you have to take things like that into consideration. Like it's gonna be a different benchmark for every dev. Like success for the team that made Slay the Spire or like Hollow Knight Silksong may be like radically different. So then like, you know, Nova Robots or, you know, some of these other smaller teams, like the Citizen Sleeper team, for example, like success for them is probably radically different than Hollow Knight Silksong or like Stalker 2 or something like that. Like, I don't think that these, and I know we're going to get to like what we've been playing lately, and I didn't intend for this to become a topic right off the top of the show, but it has been a recurring conversation over the last like week or two. It was like kind of like it was in there going up to PAX, and then PAX kind of seemed to be like the culmination of these stories. And now it's like, well, kind of have to address it. I've spent the last week really thinking about it, and like I have not seen any signs. Like, yeah, sure, okay, there's a few signs of it slowing down, but I don't even know if it's necessarily slowing down. I think it's just they're getting more selective with what deserves to get a Game Pass deal and what doesn't on day one. Because I imagine you're having to pay a lot more to get something on a service on Game Pass day one with how production costs are climbing. And that is something I've seen pointed out in a few of the opinion pieces I've seen written on this, is that, hey, it's not necessarily that the gold rush is over. It's that like Microsoft just laid off a ton of people. Like they need their own stuff to be profitable first. That has to be their focus. Like they've spent all this time closing this Activision deal, and like they are also making bigger deals for third party games. I mean, look at whatever mega deal they have with Atlas, for example. Like, what is it, 5 games in a row we've gotten from Atlas on Game Pass day one, and I would plus a DLC, and I would bet money that Shin Megami Tensei 5 gets announced this summer as coming straight to Game Pass.
Yeah, I would say you're talking about Vengeance, right? The
yeah, Shin Megami Tensei 5. Yeah. It's the first SMT game since 3, I think, to come to 3 or 2 or 3 to come to Xbox.
Yeah.
There was one way back in the day on the OG Xbox. I remember that.
I think it was 3.
Like the point is they're choosing to spend their money in their like Game Pass and marketing money in other ways. And like Final Fantasy 14 is a big push of that right now. Right. So yeah, they're trying to get those untapped markets. Like at this point, if you're sub to Game Pass for indies, you're not going to convince anybody else to sign up to play indies at this point. If they aren't already doing it, and it is the best way to play the most possible indie games, then you're not going to convince them. You're just not. Like, believe it or not, there are still people who think that there's not enough value there. And I gave up on those people about 2 years ago. Saying like 2-3 years ago, like being like, oh, the value's not there. And it's like, I remember the last time I had this argument with somebody, it was the month that the Bethesda deal officially closed. And so we got all the Bethesda games. You got MLB The Show. You got Outriders that same month. And you got a plethora of indies at the same time. And this person was like, yeah, that's still not worth it for me. I was like, okay, well, then it's never going to be. Yeah. Just straight up. And it's like, that's fine. Like value to everybody is subjective, but like I can't fathom spending, you know, like $20-$30 per game when I can get them all on my sub. I like to support, and I think it's super important to support developers right now, but like most of the ones we've heard that have come forward have been like, yeah, our games have been super profitable. Like the deals that we've gotten from Microsoft have been super good. So I don't think they're necessarily drying up. I just think it's a case of, you know, hey, we want to maintain the quality on our service. We're going to be a lot more selective with it. So if that takes us from getting like 30 day one games down to like 15 from indies, fine. As long as they're good quality, I don't care.
And who's to say that they don't come to the service later, right? I mean,
right. Like just because they're not coming day one and like subsidizing your, you know, cost of development doesn't mean that they can't ever come.
Yeah. So I do want to shout out a game that I did play that is coming. That is, I played on Xbox there. It's called Robots at Midnight. It's it's like a Breath of the Wild meets Souls-like, but it's like the combat's very Souls-like, but it's not nearly as difficult as a Souls game. It just, the combat feels like that. It's got this really cool like dash and dodge mechanic that's really cool. Like when you're fighting bosses, you can dash at one of the bigger robots and perform this. Like you can kick off their face and then perform this cool execution style move. It's kind of like it was very early when this build was this. It had only been in development for 14 months from Finish Line Games, and it was really cool, man. I really liked the kind of, you can kind of customize your weapons to how you see fit, and you can have different types of weapons like a Souls game, and there's a crafting element to it. You have a little robot buddy that follows you around and gives you hints, and may or may not be some sort of like Nier Automata-esque robot buddy that kind of shoots a turret at some point.
This game looks really dope. It got announced during the Golden Joysticks last year.
Super cool, man. I really enjoyed what I played, and had 2 boss battles. One was a robot that was kind of like this weird baseball player type thing, and really made you have to be agile. And then there's this big robot, like this big massive robot in this factory that you had to fight, and it was really cool, man. I really enjoyed it. Super cool. So
and it's a unless something's changed since it got announced, it is currently a console exclusive for Xbox. And of course it's coming to Steam.
So I thanked him for putting the game on Xbox. He said, yeah, Xbox has been really supportive. I'm like, cool, because this game looks dope.
Yeah. And I mean, that seems to be the prevailing thing that we've heard from like most developers who like come to put their stuff on there. They're like, yeah, we love working with them. Like Chris Charla just seems like such a delight to deal with. Like, talk about like we're going to talk a lot about Phil Spencer's legacy tonight, but man, if that's not one of the absolute best hires that Xbox has made in like the last 15 years, is Chris Charla. Like, it's legitimately, it's like, well, Phil was already there, obviously, but putting Phil in charge and then promoting Sarah up as fast as they did, and then obviously Chris Charla. I mean, that's got to be like your dream team right there. So
that game was cool. There's a bunch of other things there that were really, really cool.
Xbox had a pretty decent presence there too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Midwest games booth, those games are coming. Rah.
Well, Square Enix did the demo for Visions of Mana behind closed doors,
and it looks good, Josh. Let me tell you,
looks great. It looks great. I was watching Danny Pena's preview of it.
Looks really cool.
That looks real cool. Grounded had a panel there.
Yes, Grounded had a panel. There's a lot of panels there, man.
Grounded is it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I mean
they confirmed there that the update that's going to drop on the 16th, so it'll be for everybody, and that's the day it comes to PlayStation and Switch. That is the final major content update that they are planning right now.
Well, I mean, look, that game's been out for what, 4 years?
4 years. 4 years since early access started. 2 years. It'll be. It's been about 20 months or so since it came out regularly. It came out September 22 as a full release. Just what a great story for that game. Like it was instantly profitable in early access for them, so they were allowed to get a lot of runway to do more than they thought they were going to get to. Cool. They've been supporting it for a couple of years. Microsoft has said they see this as a franchise to support, so I'll be interested to see what the next big thing that they do is for this team. Like, are they gonna let Obsidian grow that team? Maybe work with Mojang a little bit. That would kind of be the direction I would take.
Yeah, I wonder.
They got a series with Paramount Plus in the works, supposedly. I mean, which I can't wait for. If that actually does happen, that's going to be the Honey I Shrunk the Kids reboot that I've always wanted.
I was going to say it's just Honey I Shrunk the Kids all over again.
Maybe we can get Rick Moranis out of retirement.
Well, good news on that front, Josh, because the new Disney Plus show Shrunk, starring Josh Gad and Rick Moranis, is coming sometime soon-ish. Maybe.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'll settle for him being
in development, they say.
Yeah, so Xbox had a really cool presence there. I mean, obviously now we get to brag like, oh, Final Fantasy 14 was there too. That starter pack is available, by the way, with some bizarre bans.
Yeah.
Have you seen this? Like, players are getting banned in game on Xbox because of the AI scripts that Xbox uses for scanning chat
Oh no,
messages.
I didn't see this.
So it's like I don't remember what it is, but like something company in the game. It's like Free Company or Trade Company or something. It's like I think it's Free Company is getting flagged
Oh really?
in messages, and people are getting erroneously banned for it.
Man.
And Microsoft had to put out a statement today about it, being like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to like review messages
Oh
manually
man,
again."
that sucks.
Essentially, they had to admit to using AI scrapers, and it's like, oof, tough look. Talk about stepping on a rake.
Yeah.
You really needed this rollout to go
Yeah.
good.
But I mean, anybody that's been paying attention to Microsoft over the last few years knows they're going to try to use AI for
What a
everything. So,
catastrophe. What a catastrophe.
oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so PAX.
PAX was fun. Can't wait to go back.
PAX was fun.
Can't wait to go back.
You met some cool folks. You already mentioned Major Nelson. You met
I
Ben
did.
Starr. You met my favorite voice actor
We
of
did.
last year.
We ran into Ben Starr at the Starbucks on the way over. That was fun. He talked to us for like 15 minutes. We were almost late to like certain things we had to do. Ben Starr was talking.
That's very rad.
Yeah,
I
he was
love
talking
that.
video games with us, and that was cool. He was there for the Warframe panel. He's the villain in the new Warframe expansion, so that was cool.
Not something I would
No,
have
but
guessed.
dude, he's so into video games, man. It's nuts. It's so crazy.
Yeah, that dude absolutely loves him. I saw him when Baldur's Gate came out. He was tweeting like
Yeah,
nonstop about it.
yeah. So cool,
Very
cool
cool.
guy,
Very
man.
cool.
Cool guy. Met the Iron Lords, so that was cool. Yep.
We love them.
Yeah, it was cool, man. There's a lot of people. I met the Giant Bomb guys, so that was fun. That was cool for me because I love Giant Bomb. Old Giant Bomb guys, but also
Old
also on my
Giant
way home,
Bomb.
Josh, at the airport, Jeff Grubb sat next to me. At the
Jeffy Grubb
airport.
Grubb.
It's like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
What a
Yeah.
nice young
What a
man.
nice man. What a nice young man. So we talked games for a little bit. That was fun. A lot of talk about PlayStation 5 Pro and Switch 2 openly, Josh, at PAX.
Yeah, very openly.
You would have thought these things were announced already openly. Can't tell you which developers on air, Josh, but let me tell you, they all know. They
basically backing up everything that we've heard.
So also that Xbox handheld everybody wants is also
that seems to be like the other, like, if those two are the most open secrets for them, like this handheld has become the most open secret in like the last, since we did our last show, it has become like the most open secret humanly possible.
Well, what I was hearing at PAX, again, everybody take it with a grain of salt, but I heard it from a few
do not aggregate.
I heard it from a few developers, said that, you know, a new kind of I get not skew. I don't know what the right word is, but I'm just gonna say skew on the dev kit popped up for Xbox, and it's not. It's to optimize something that's not as powerful as the Series X, and it kind of seems like an alternate version of the Series S, which is what it seems like people were talking about. And so, I mean, unless they're making some huge revision to the Series S, I would say.
Which I can't fathom at this
some
point.
Sort of handheld that will be optimized, because they use that universal Windows development system, that kind of window, like that automated optimization type thing, right? Like within the Windows and Xbox dev kits. So, you know, theoretically, most devs may just flip a switch and it does a lot of the automation for you, supposedly. Now, obviously, it doesn't work all the time, right? Baldur's Gate being the prime example of that. But yeah, it seems like that is also a pretty open secret going around. So
for sure.
But yeah, PAX was cool. If you are a fan of video games, I highly recommend checking out PAX if you can afford to get there and back in all the badges and stuff.
It is such an expensive trip.
Yeah, it was expensive, and I got my badge for free, so everything else was like, ugh, geez, but we made it work. So
yeah, it's still a pretty pricey trip, even if that's being covered, though.
Yeah, I mean the badges are the cheapest part. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's trying to cover airfare and lodging. So, and you're in downtown Boston, so good luck eating cheap.
Yeah. But I stayed with a friend, so that we kind of split it, and it was fine. So
yeah, the one PAX I went to PAX South the first year. I stayed probably about 20-25 minutes away from the convention, and because I drove my car down, or a friend did. I was actually not walking at the time. I had just had my second ankle surgery about a month before, so he pushed me around PAX in a wheelchair.
Nice.
It was great. We got front row for every panel we wanted to go to, which was kind of dope. That was the infamous year that I met Randy Pitchford.
Did he do magic tricks for you?
Oh yeah, I got to see him do his fucking magic tricks up close. There was just like this like aura that everybody was like, yeah, this dude's a total dick.
Did he show you his magical thumb drive?
No, he did not show me. He did not show me his highly illegal magical thumb drive. He left that at Medieval Times for everybody.
I still can't believe that happened. So funny.
But I did get to meet Andrew Goldfarb and Mikey Newman when they were both at Gearbox there. So Mikey was still writing on Borderlands, so that was pretty cool. Got to meet them, hang out with them a little bit after the panel while we were waiting for a little elevator that would take us up a level, so that my buddy didn't have to push me all the way back up this gigantic ramp. That was who else was there? Undead Labs was there. That was really cool. Nintendo had a nice sized booth. That was they were demoing the 3DS with Majora's Mask at the time.
Man, Nintendo's booth was so
they're showing that. It was Codename Steam and something else that come out right around that time. So that was cool. That was actually my first time playing a real 3DS. Twitch had a great booth. There was some pretty cool stuff there. It was the first year though, so it was like, nobody really knew how South was going to be received, and obviously South doesn't exist anymore. San Antonio was always kind of a strange place to do it. Why not do it in Austin? Austin or Dallas would have made a whole lot more sense, I think. But whatever. You win some, you lose some. I think they were trying to think of it in regards to where the convention center is. You can just walk to the Riverwalk from here.
Yeah.
Because everybody parked at the Riverwalk and walked 2 blocks over. But yeah, I'd say it's a really great experience. I would love to go to something maybe not necessarily Gamescom, because I think that's too big for me. That's too massive. I would love to go to Game Fest Play Days. One of these years, something that's just a lot smaller, and obviously it's for media and specifically invited content creators only. But you have to be really big to go to that. So
yeah, not there yet, Josh.
Nope, not there yet. Maybe in 5 years.
5 years. I'm going to be aged out of all this in 5 years.
Jesus.
Josh, 5 years.
You know who hasn't aged out of all this, though, Corey? Phil Spencer. As of this week, 10 years at the head of Xbox.
So remember how excited we all were when they announced that?
Yeah. Do we want to just dive on into this?
Let's go head first, Josh. Head first into Phil's big 1-0.
Man, there have been some wildly different opinion pieces about Phil's 10 years at Xbox over the last
VGCs that said he killed the brand.
I saw VGCs and I promptly ignored it. I thought that was absolutely absurd. I'm going to be honest. I thought that was absolutely absurd. I was just okay, so, and it seems just about everybody else ignored that piece too. I didn't see a single person. I saw one person retweet that into my timeline, and it's someone who writes opinion pieces for them regularly. And it's okay, so everybody is uniformly agreeing this is one of the dumbest things we've read this month, right? I want to make sure that I'm not alone here. But just for anybody who doesn't know, like they were basically like, well, every decision Phil has made has backfired. Like relying on subscriptions has backfired. No. Getting the most powerful hardware has backfired. No. Their quality in games has gone downhill. Again, no. They just, like, I think you guys have to understand that when he took over, and granted, he took over in 2014. He took over less than a year after the Xbox One came out. Like, but there were moves to consolidate that power over the rest of the generation, right? I would say he probably didn't have full control until about 2017. I think that's when he was named CEO of Microsoft Gaming officially, and not just head of Xbox. He kind of had the Sarah Bond title before that. Like, he was in charge of the platform, but not necessarily like the games. And he had come over from running Xbox Game Studios. Like, he was responsible for a lot of the stuff during the 360 era. I would say probably like everything that we got, it's short of Kinect. Kinect very much seems like that was a Microsoft mandate to, you will make money. Man, yeah. Everybody wants this. Like, this is tested great with focus groups. We're doing this. I thought it was just absolutely silly. I actually couldn't believe some of the pieces that we've seen out here. Like, yes, you can say that they haven't had the games, and I think that is a very fair critique. It's one that we've all just like beat over the head repeatedly at this point. And yeah, at a certain point, we got to stop making the excuses, right? But he takes over in a generation that they pretty much lost from the get-go. They put out some great experiences last gen, especially I would say the first couple of years, that Xbox gamers just didn't bite on, or the folks who would have bid on them had already jumped the PS4. And so people didn't discover some of these games until later in the generation. Like, I can't tell, the revisionism for the last like 3 or 4 years over Sunset Overdrive and Quantum Break has been breathtaking to watch. Like, oh, so y'all didn't care. Y'all told us they didn't have any games, and now you're having to like kind of like slink back and be like, hey man, they actually had some really good shit. Like, yeah, they did. Like, the early years, we think of them as being like these barren wastelands, but like, you look at the first couple of years of Xbox One, and it wasn't actually that bad. It gets bad from about 2017 onward. It gets real bad. And right about the time, and so the complaint was, they don't have any studios. Microsoft isn't putting out enough first-party games. So they start buying these studios. And this is the core of the VTC piece, was like, they bought all these studios and they still can't get quality games out. Like, well, first of all, that's a matter of like objectivity. Like, the quality is subjective, right? Like, I don't think in any world in where games are getting like 85s on Metacritic, it means that is a bad game. Similarly, like, yeah, they've had some stumbles. Starfield wasn't as good as it should have been. Redfall, we aren't even going to talk about, but like, you look at what they put out in 2020, 2021, 2022, like, yeah, they really lacked like that killer AAA must-have experience. Like, let's be honest, Horizon 5 moves units, but that's not a Horizon or a Last of Us. Halo Infinite, while cool, kind of wore out its welcome really quickly because there wasn't enough content in the multiplayer. But we got Age of Empires, we got Psychonauts 2, and I'm not trying to put those on the level of those games. So like, when they say like, oh, Xbox hasn't had any good games, like, you are writing off Psychonauts 2, you are writing off Pentiment, you're writing off Grounded, you're writing off Sea of Thieves, you're writing off Forza, you're writing off these games that Ori, these supplemental games that should be to your story games. And like, this year, we're finally turning the corner. And if that piece had said it's taken too long to get there, but we know it's on the way, I would 100% agree with that take.
Well,
it has taken too long, and I think Phil somewhere along the way understood and realized. And for me, really, it was the Halo Infinite delay. That's the one that did it for me. When he could have shoved it out there for the launch, but instead took it on the chin and said, we're not going to have a launch title. We're going to go all in on this Destiny partnership instead. And it's going to be our big fall 2021 game. And that paid off in a big way, I think. I think that paid off because then that helped sustain them in 2022.
Yeah.
When they didn't have anything, having content for all these games. And that's something I don't think we talk about enough, is like, yeah, Phil has really struggled to get these AAA games out. Most of those studios he's only had for like 4 years. Maybe 5. So like, you combine that with a pandemic that basically shut the industry down for 18 months. It's a little bit hard to get those games out there. And like, so then you're balancing people like the VGCP screaming, you don't have enough games and you don't have the quality even when you do put those games out, versus I want to make the absolute best thing possible. We'll take the bad press and just get the good game out. Like, I think you've got a great slate for this year, and Phil and Xbox are doing things that these other studios or these other companies are like, oh shit, we need to pivot to meet that. You know, we saw how deep PlayStation has gone down the rabbit hole on like trying to get a quality multiplayer game out, and kudos to them for Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is absolutely a smash success. That's something I feel like we would have seen in 360 era Xbox, is Helldivers 2. That's the kind of game I could have seen them greenlighting in another age. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, cool, you got one. Now the question is, can you sustain that? For Xbox, the question is going to become, well, you got a good AAA game or two out, story driven. Can you keep up? Can you keep the pace up? Like last year, you know, oh, you had Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush was the surprise hit of the year. Starfield stumbled, and that was supposed to be their big game. Like, yeah, the engagement numbers are great. It sold great, but it stumbled, like, critically. And, you know, I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to who are just like, yeah, I heard that game just sucks, because all they see are, you know, the Reddit and Twitter comments. And I think it's got to be frustrating for them to a degree. Like, I think they've also realized that they're just never going to get the press that, you know, Sony first party does, because it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years. Well, even longer than that, really, you know, since they had like bona fide hits coming out all the time. Like, having one or two every 12 months, really, like, that makes it hard to build momentum. And I think Sony is starting to realize that too. Like, oh shit, you know, like, we've really only had like, you know, 2-3 games since Horizon came out. And so, well, since Forbidden West came out, like, we've only had like 2 or 3, like, you know, games. And granted, 2 of those, all 3 of them are smash successes.
You think that's why people aren't talking about PlayStation as much as Xbox with games right now? Is that they're just,
I think because like PlayStation has successfully made it to where when their exclusives come out, it's an event. And because they're super pretty games, they play well, they release very polished. You know, we've heard before that, you know, they've pushed games back to make sure they get enough polish, this and that. Like, and then on top of that, I mean, like, their IPs that people love, like, even their new IPs, though, like, they may not sell great initially or like right away, and then they build up over time because of the word of mouth, because people see the reviews. They are like open worlds done right. You know, I've said that about Ghost of Tsushima before. That was an example of an open world done right, unlike a Ubisoft game. Like, it knew its limits and it had just enough to not feel overwhelming. Versus, you know, something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I think that that's a pretty important distinction to make. Like, it's kind of like when Nintendo has certain teams that when they put out a game or certain franchises release something, it's an event. But I think PlayStation, like, Sony has successfully become like the first developer that, like, every game they put out is now an event, because we expect a certain level of quality. And I think that is something that, like, that's press you can't buy. Like, they've had such a good reputation for so long now that, I mean, even delivering like the hit, you know, The Last of Us in 2013, that bought them that cut so much pressure off their back for PS4 to have these incredible games at launch. Like, the word of mouth on that, and then it was like, oh, well, we're going to re-release it on PS4 because why wouldn't we? You know, 18 months later, really sustained them until Uncharted was ready. You had Bloodborne thrown in there, but From wasn't like quite the, you know, fanatical fan base it was until after Bloodborne. And, you know, now you're looking at it going like, damn, like, you look at the streak they went on. I would argue it culminated in 2020. You know, in a pandemic year, they had all these games ready to go. In a new console year, they had all these games ready to go. That's kind of where Microsoft is right now. Like, they have all these games that are cooking, that are just about ready for prime time. But they've clearly given, like, Ninja Theory probably should have had Hellblade out like 6 months ago. They are letting them have absolutely every ounce of time that they need on that game. But that's something that was announced with your console, and it's still not out. 4.5 years later.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, didn't take them that long to make once they actually sat down and started making it in late 2020.
Well,
What is that, like 3.5
they
years?
announced that it was coming on Unreal Engine 5 when Unreal Engine 5 1.0 wasn't even out yet, right? Like that was like
Right.
they were kind of building the game on the fly as these updates were coming out on the beta, and then like the coalition ended up helping like kind of build it internally, right? That was kind of the thing also. So
Right. Well, they were building it internally. They were open that they didn't get to start working on it before the pandemic hit. Like they announced it, and then all of a sudden everything shut down due to COVID 3 months later. Because I'll always remember that summer 2020 showcase of like, we were so ready, we were so proud, we were so primed, and it was just a lot of proof of concept stuff. And we got a dev diary from Ninja Theory during that saying, yeah, we were working on like location scouting, but like we can't be in the studio right now, so we're designing, like we're kind of like sketching out costumes and doing like, we're sketching out the game essentially. And then a year and a half later, fall 21 is when we get that awesome gameplay demo. We get that first gameplay demo of like the giant on the beach, and it was like, where did the cutscenes stop and where did the gameplay start? Right. Essentially, that was really cool, and that was like kind of the first example of what you could do with Unreal 5. Like, so I don't know, like when I take it into consideration for that, it's like, okay, well, if there's not a pandemic, I don't know if we follow the same timeline or if, it probably is out by like last summer or fall, realistically, without a pandemic.
I mean,
and that's fine. But, and yeah, that would have helped buoy, oh, well, Starfield wasn't like this game changer, but like, oh, they've had 2 really good games this year. They've had 2 really good games. And, you look at the rest of what they've got this year, and okay, like I see the vision. We have all come out of their summer showcases the last 3 years, I think, going, man, their slate looks good. If they can just show us gameplay and get these games out, it's going to be awesome. I'm feeling the way about their slate that I did about PlayStation's circa 2016, 2017. Where we saw Horizon, we got Spider-Man, and then they ended with that God of War demo with the first boss battle in God of War 2018. And I just remember my jaw on the ground during that, how incredible that was. That's the kind of thing that I'm expecting from Summer Showcase this year. Like, we've had some jaw-dropping moments, don't get me wrong, but it's like we had all that momentum during last showcase, culminating in South of Midnight, and then they end with a console. Before going into a Starfield Direct, it was like this really weird thing. And like, yeah, that Direct was cool. Like, you shouldn't do that every year, but like, this, if you've wondered about the lack of exclusives and like, what has Phil been doing all this time, he's literally been remaking the whole business because it was not sustainable before. I guess that's what I'm coming back to. Is like, it wasn't sustainable before. Microsoft wanted to sell the Xbox division off because the Xbox One was such a huge debacle, and basically Phil is the reason that it's still at Xbox is still at Microsoft. So, like, yeah, you can hate him for some of the business decisions that have been made. I certainly am not a fan of the way that he's talked about some of these layoffs as of late. Saying that like, oh, that's the cost of doing business. That is corpo speak. I fucking hate that. I absolutely hate that. I'm still not a fan of the Activision deal. You're never going to get me to say that I'm a fan of it. I think that deal's looking worse and worse for him, even if it's a money factory, which is basically what it's meant to be. I don't care if that's funding, games like South of Midnight that I really want to play, or things like Hellblade. Like, that is still, like, you should not own that many major IPs and that many major studios. Bethesda was kind of the line in the sand, I think.
Plus, we kind of like, we've talked this to death too, but we've already
we've beaten this topic to death. Go listen to any of our like first 20 episodes.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, like, they probably don't pursue cloud gaming without Phil steering them into that midway through last generation. Like, the acknowledgement that they were not going to win another generation was actually really important. And I've seen like my favorite comment I've seen on the Phil articles is like, well, this guy's just a snake oil salesman. Every year he says this is the best lineup we've ever had for Xbox. Yeah, that's his fucking job. His fucking job is to go out there and get you hyped, not go out there and be like, hey guys, sorry, we don't have fucking shit because Johnny first name bunch of numbers doesn't think that we have anything, right. And thinks I shouldn't do my fucking job.
Oh, man, people. Oh man. Plus game development's hard, everybody. Don't know if you guys knew that or not.
Plus, yeah, the game development is hard and expensive.
Yeah, I mean, developing these huge games while rebuilding the plane as it's flying, right? I mean, basically what Phil did, and like,
you're basically asking him to perform triage while the patient is getting shot again. Like, that's essentially what you're asking him to do here. And like, we've talked about like how Team Xbox loves to step on their own rakes. Like, they're a lot like Bungie. They love to set out rakes and then deliberately step on as many as possible when they get good news. And I don't know, like, there are a lot worse people that could be in charge of Xbox right now. I also think that Phil is kind of a cautionary tale of a parasocial relationship that you build with your consumers. And like, yeah, in the past, okay, we've known Satoru Iwata, we've known Shigeru Miyamoto, we've known Reggie, we've known Sean Layden and Ken Kutaragi, and people like this. Peter Moore used to be that for Xbox, right? In today's day and age, like, Jim Ryan's not interacting with people like that. Nobody at Nintendo is like this anymore outside of Sakurai. Yeah. And even he has been like, I'm fucking done. Gamers are weird.
Well, I mean, he doesn't even technically work for Nintendo. Hasn't for a while, right? I mean, Sora Interactive is like his own thing, right?
Yeah.
He left Nintendo.
But it's like, when we think of like other personalities, there are these third-party studios. We think of Hideo Kojima. We think of people like that. And I think it's a little dangerous for us to be like, oh my God, I love this guy. Like, when they're not just strictly an artist, when Phil is at his core, he's a businessman. Like, yeah, he really appealed to a lot of us, who were in our early 20s and stuff, by being like, man, I'm a gamer just like you guys. And like, I still think that's a really cool message because, trust me, Jim Ryan has never played a minute of fucking PlayStation in his life.
That picture of him holding that controller is the funniest thing.
Dude, the picture of that and him wearing a headset is just one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. Like, that dude does not play video games. At least with Phil, one, I know for a fucking fact he's playing video games because he's online playing them half the time. But, like, this dude, I do think knows and understands what gamers want. It's just, you were basically asking him to make wine out of water is essentially what you were asking him to do. You were asking him to be Jesus Christ for the last couple of years, and like, that's why I think it was so funny in a way when like all these like hyper toxic Xbox personalities turned on the brand a couple months ago when they announced that Sea of Thieves and Grounded and Hi-Fi Rush and all those were going to come to other platforms. Like, yeah, because y'all were worshiping a man and a plastic box, essentially. First of all, if you find yourself doing that, please go outside. Man is fallible. Everybody is going to screw up and make mistakes. God knows we clown Jim Ryan for damn near everything we can. Like, yes, even Shigeru Miyamoto has messed up. Does anybody remember Wii Music? I remember Wii Music.
Yikes.
Like, for every hit that Nintendo has, they've probably got 2 or 3 games that you're like, maybe this one needed some more time in the oven or just shouldn't have released. Like, there are, like, everybody has these stumbles. It's just Xboxes are so much more publicized, I think, because one, like, everybody who's putting us out there, either one, has never experienced good Xbox, or two, it's just like, man, remember how fucking good the 360 was? Remember how good that stuff was? Like, and they yearn to return to that. And like, and in the course, I think, like, because you don't have the momentum, like in today's, it wasn't as bad when you didn't have message boards and like, I would say social media. I think social media has made it infinitely worse. Back when we just had like GameFAQs and like the IGN message boards, it was like, oh, Xbox and PlayStation are each going to have like 2 games this year. Oh boy!
And the only social media you had was like MySpace and trying to figure out
you had like fucking MySpace, and it was like the 50 friends that you went to school with. So, like, everybody probably liked the same thing as you anyways, and you were in a bubble. You waited for your Game Informer and your EGM to show up. Like, now, we've got access to these things in our phones 24/7, and like the toxicity has just gotten out of control. Like, these are pixels on a screen, guys. But we got dudes sending fucking death threats over it. Like, I don't I don't know what y'all do. We don't deserve video games. We just don't. We don't deserve this kind of entertainment. So I think when you look at the deck that's been stacked against him, like, I think Phil has done pretty damn good. I'm not going to be like, oh, he's been incredible. I think it's really hard to say somebody's been incredible when they talk the way they just did about layoffs and when they've struggled to get product out the door. But I think he's positioned the business in a way that it's going to be successful with or without him. That's the success story for me.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's the big one. And, you know, he keeps talking about where he wants to take it in the future. You know, the handheld has been talked about a lot. And I really do think, like, he's going to see that out the door, and then you're probably going to see Phil step back. Probably, like, stay at Microsoft in some capacity, but there's a reason why they promoted Sarah up when they did, and they gave Matt Booty a promotion. I don't think they want it all grouped under one person's responsibility anymore, because I do think that Phil had a choice. Do I focus on the business side of things? Do I focus on the gaming side of things? And, like, he kind of got pulled in the direction that I feel like Sean Layden thought he was getting pulled in, so he jumped ship before he was forced to. And I think there's a lot of pressure right now to deliver on these acquisitions. Call of Duty this year better be the best fucking Call of Duty they've had in like 10 years. It's been in production for 4. It's Microsoft is in charge. That Diablo expansion's got to hit. And honestly, like, Hellblade, Avowed, Indiana Jones, all 3 of those have got to be hits too. Like, I would say less so sales wise and more so critically. They got to be hits.
Yeah.
That's the struggle there. Like, he's given these teams a lot of runway, you know, telling Josh Sawyer, hey, go make Pentiment.
Divisive hits either, like Starfield, right? Like, where a lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't like it. Like,
we're like the silent majority enjoyed it.
They got a hit for everybody that plays them, right? So
I think that Ryan McCaffrey had a really great quote in his piece, and it's one of the feature quotes in his story. Xbox has walked the walk of Spencer's talk of bringing gaming to everyone. I would say that is Phil Spencer's legacy, is his emphasis on cloud, getting Xbox back into the global market, but also, like, look how much the ecosystem has opened up. Like, they came to Steam under him. Game Pass is a thing under him. You know, they may be going to handheld. These partnerships they've had with ROG and with the Legion Go, and, you know, it's a big thing. Like, never forget, once upon a time, everybody screamed because Forza Horizon 4 was going to come to PC on day one.
Quantum Break was the big one too, right? I mean,
Quantum Break was a big one. Yeah, Quantum Break is when it started. I still remember people freaking out about that. It got normalized a couple of years later. That was
the one where they're like, play anywhere. You buy it on Xbox, you can play it on PC, and people were freaking out, man. I remember that.
So I want to read this. I want to read this last paragraph from Ryan McCaffrey in full. I would argue, if you're trying to understand Xbox, there's no better person to pick the mind of in games journalism today than Ryan McCaffrey.
The best Xbox.
He's a dude who his whole career has been about covering Xbox. I feel like he does it very fairly. He calls them out every chance he gets. If they're doing something wrong, he's going to call them out. And that's part of being a fan.
The other thing too is, like, he does it respectfully, though. He's not a dick about it, like some people are.
He's like some people that are better summed up as bloggers than actual journalists. I agree. I think Ryan, like, when it comes to, like, previews and stuff, he's one of the best out there. So his last paragraph reads this: I would argue Phil Spencer's first decade as top man at Xbox can be summed up this way: a gamer-first focus on great services like backwards compatibility and Game Pass that hasn't quite yet delivered a consistent quantity and quality of first-party games, though the future looks incredibly bright no matter where and how you like to play. As for the next 10 years, personally, I'm incredibly excited. Spencer has shown that above all else, he puts players first, and he's not afraid to spend money to build out Xbox studios. Soon there will be a never-ending wave of first-party games in any genre you could ask for, all available as part of your Game Pass subscription, and you might even be able to play them on the go, too. Here's to the next decade of Xbox. I think that's a little bit more generous than I would be. And, you know, deservedly so. Ryan is one of the few guys that Phil will sit down with at a moment's notice to talk to. I don't know if you guys have noticed this over the last, several years. Phil's gotten pretty selective with who he talks to. In terms of interviews, he'll sit with like an outlet, but it's going to be like the senior person. At Xbox, it's pretty much Ryan that he's going, or at IGN, excuse me, it's pretty much Ryan he's going to sit with. And I think that's for exactly what you said. Like he's fair, he covers them fair, but he's gonna call them out on their bullshit. And he has written a number of op-eds in the past being pretty critical of Xbox that I've been like, hey, I don't know if I agree all the way with this. It's funny that now it's the other way. Now it's like, oh, I think you're being a little bit too nice here. But this in the VGC piece could not be more different in their interpretation of the first 10 years. And I think that's a healthy thing. I think it's a healthy thing for us to have different perspectives, but fair perspectives.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What are you thinking, Corey?
I mean, for me, in the whole Phil 10-year thing, like, he's definitely done a lot of good things. There's some questionable things, but, like, for me, like,
yeah.
The questionable things, though, is for me, like, he had to change the game, right? Like Game Pass, for example, right? Game Pass, Xbox was losing, and he had to change the rules of the game because the rules that were dealt were not, in Xbox's favor. So Game Pass had to change the rules. Day one to Game Pass had to change the rules, right? Getting games on Steam, he had to change the rules. And now we're seeing these other games on other platforms still changing the rules. And I think
I would argue that the Steam thing has now become expected. That's expected of everyone. Like Sony is kind of getting their feet held to the fire right now by fans of all platforms.
And like you see how successful Helldivers was for Sony, right? And they put it on Steam day one.
It's huge. So,
I mean, he's done I think overall Phil has done a great job of turning this massive ship around, making it what it is. Yes, Xbox is in third place. They're always going to be in third place, but it's still recognizable. And a lot of people still play Xbox. A lot of people still play Xbox games. People still use Xbox Live to chat to their friends. They're still playing Halo. They're still playing Gears. They're still playing Forza, right? A lot of games on the horizon.
Yeah.
Some of the acquisitions, like we already talked about, questionable. Some of them were great. Could have spent that money elsewhere, sort of thing. But like, I don't know if there was a better person to put in that position at that time, right? And if he needs to go now, like, if there's somebody that can take Xbox in a better direction the next 10 years, like Phil has definitely built the foundation of what Xbox is now, right? And so whatever the next 10 years looks like, is that Phil? Is that someone else? Is that, him handing the torch off to Sarah? Is that, a combination of people, right? Like a group that's going to lead the Xbox team? Like, we'll see. But Phil has definitely set the expectations for Xbox, set the set the standards for what they want to do as a brand. And that's kind of all I have to say. I'm interested. I think also, like, this would be an interesting topic to revisit once this handheld comes out and how people react to that too. Because, like, I think that's, Steam obviously proved it could work, right? I mean, Nintendo, but Steam really is like, oh, well, I have this device over here that plays games and I can take my library with me on this handheld.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, like, the Steam Deck is not competing with the Switch. It's not trying to be. It's trying to be, because, I mean, let's face it, PC is becoming increasingly the best place to play games. I mean, you can argue it's always been, but, for those who want the convenience of a console, essentially, but don't want the complicatedness of building their own system out, the Steam Deck is pretty perfect. Or, the ROG, if you want to expand that and, go to the Epic Game Store, or, you want to do some emulation, you want to play things that require BattleNet authentication, like, you want to play fucking Destiny on the go. You're going to go seek out these devices like the ROG and the Legion, and, like, the Steam Deck is starting to set itself up to be the industry standard over there. Like, well, can Xbox put out the handheld that bridges those two? That bridges the Switch audience with the Steam audience? And I think, I think you're absolutely able to do that. You're also, like, Sony is going to have to get into that market eventually. And I mean, that may not be for a little while. They're kind of broaching it a little bit with the Portal, but the Portal is still a remote play device. And if anything, they're trying to get in on like the cloud territory there, like Game Pass Cloud. But I think that, you look at the next 5-10 years of Xbox, and I don't think Phil's going anywhere. I want to be super clear. I think Phil is at least here through the end of this generation.
Yeah.
But I do think that maybe by the time the next hardware comes out, like, again, I think he wants to see the handheld, and then he's going to bounce.
I would.
He'll go to some other role within Microsoft. I could honestly see him being brought in to save the Surface.
I would say he's gone by the time next generation, like maybe after the launch.
That was the whole point of promoting Sarah Bond when they did and how.
She's obviously like quote unquote shadowing him, right, in terms of leadership style things, and she's taken on leadership of certain things that he is now hands off of, right? Like,
I mean, they've been very clear that the deals with the Japanese studios that they have with Square, with Atlas, and with RGG do not happen without Sarah. That Sarah personally negotiated those.
Yeah.
And those are the biggest deals that Game Pass has ever seen. Not only Xbox, but like you got all three of those companies to put their entire libraries or start moving their entire libraries over to Xbox. Like you got Final Fantasy 14 to Xbox. Like her and Phil got that to happen. So
yeah,
I'm pretty interested.
Interesting. I'm interested to see what happens next.
I'm very interested to see what happens next. Do we want to talk a little bit about this handheld that we keep referencing?
Yeah. So I mean that handheld is
if you want to keep talking about ways that Phil wants to change the game.
He didn't say handheld was coming specifically, but in a recent interview, he did say what he wanted to see in a handheld.
He basically wants a Series S in handheld
exactly form. What I think everybody else wants.
Yeah, and I've seen some folks be like, well, they're just going to hold back the next generation like the Series S did. Good. We have successfully caught up to technology. Games have successfully caught up. Congratulations. If you want to play the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, like also you're not getting the best quality on a console. You need to go build like a $3,000 rig for that. Then okay, fine. Whatever. By the time consoles come out, they're already outdated. Just straight up, they're already outdated. I think that they
have to finalize the specs like 2 years in advance, 3 sometimes.
Yep, because you got to mass produce. And then I mean, and let's face it, when they built the Series X, when they built the S, the X, and when the PS5 was built, nobody could have predicted the pandemic was coming. But the S ended up being the surprise hit during that because it was affordable. It was an easy way. Just get that in a Game Pass sub and you're good to go. Mm-hmm. When you couldn't find the other two. And all of a sudden, once you can find those consoles, they're already like kind of outdated because nobody could have expected that everybody would just shift. That would be the event that would shift people to PC gaming. Nobody could have predicted that. Or shift more towards digital gaming at the very least. And then you get the Steam Deck on top of that a couple years later. So I do think there's some fascinating things coming. I am pretty convinced that we will see this handheld, but it's instead of a Series X next generation, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean,
and for that matter, I think the Series S is going to be phased out this year. That's my bold prediction is that this summer they're going to phase out the Series S.
There's going to be some sort of like, hey, we're at the mid generation. Companies no longer have to spec for the Series S. They can play the cloud version if they want to play it, right? I mean, like the games that everybody plays, right? Like Madden, Fortnite, Call of Duty, those games will all still run, right? I mean, they're still coming out on Xbox One.
I would say as long as they still have the mandate inside of Xbox, like as long as they're still meeting those specs, then fine. But it avoids another Baldur's Gate situation.
They can't afford that.
That being
GTA,
said,
right? I mean, they can't.
It's not going to happen with GTA. Like Rockstar's not going to do that. I think Baldur's Gate was such a unique situation because of the couch co-op nature of it. From everything I read, like that was really what kind of derailed it. I don't think you're going to have a single problem with GTA. Yeah. My prediction is that ugly ass HP looking Series X that we've seen, the all white one, I think the Series S is getting replaced by it. I think you're going to get two announcements. I think you're going to get that as, you know, the all digital Series X, and I'm totally convinced that there's a Series X Pro. I'm totally convinced. No matter what Microsoft has said, I'm totally convinced that it's a real
I
thing.
almost wonder.
They can't afford to
I
fall
almost
behind.
wonder if the Series S, if it gets phased out, the handheld will replace the Series S as that low spec.
Oh, that's
It'll be called
absolutely
like the
what I think.
Series SP or something.
I could see that. It'll be next
You think?
generation. I don't think you see a handheld for at least 2 years. Summer 2026, I can see the reveal happening, because I'm pretty certain Microsoft is moving up the next console to fall 26. If they don't do a Pro console this fall, that's the confirmation for me.
I mean,
but I don't think they're going to wait till 2028. I think that 26 at the earliest, 27 at the latest, you're going to get the next wave. And the handheld is going to be a big headliner of that. It's going to be sold as like, because that's going to appeal to folks who not just get a Series X. Like the Series S appealed to me in that way, right? I got one for the bedroom.
Yeah.
Now, granted, my girlfriend plays her games on it, but we were like, oh, that's perfect, because we hated having the Xbox One in our bedroom. The thing was so big, bulky, and ugly.
Sometimes I really love the design and the aesthetic of the Series S, but like when I go to play games on it, I'm like, man, I really want my Series X right now.
I really do.
It's become my Destiny, Fortnite, Disney Dreamlight Valley box. I'm gonna be honest with you.
It's my indies box. I watch a lot of I play a lot of indies on there, and watch a lot of Netflix and Hulu. So the other thing that I'm pretty stoked about when we sit here and we talk about like what's coming, Phil wants to open up the ecosystem to see other storefronts on the Xbox. And I think that'll be the biggest selling point. If you come out and you say, hey, we have opened up the Xbox to the Epic Game Store, Steam, and itch.io. Holy shit.
So this is something I wanted to bring up a couple months ago, but I didn't because we were talking about so many other things. Was like, what if the next Xbox is just a set-top box PC that has like, this is how they integrate, like Windows 12 is supposedly coming soon, right? And it's like they're gonna have like a better gaming experience on Windows 12. Well, what if the next Xbox is just an Xbox branded Windows machine that can boot into either the Xbox ecosystem or, you know, a quote unquote piece, really customized living room PC.
So the Steam box, but good. I don't know if I would necessarily think that would be the route that they would take, and that's not me like trying to like piss on the idea. I think that's probably a little bit of a harder sell to like the crowd that is still invested in consoles, which for right now we seem to be the tail end of. Console, and so I forget who it was. I think it was Matt Piscatello was making this point. Was like more and more stuff is going to come to PC, just because he was like, the audience that wants consoles is going to slowly stop gaming or die out. Like, it's going to be portables and it's going to be PC machines. And we've already seen Xbox like believes their platform to be a digital platform first, that you can play anywhere. And I do think that they're trying to take a Steam-like approach, and it's interesting that they're the console company that's doing that first, and I think that's out of necessity. But also, it's funny because I see people who are like, well, why not? Why do you just want Sony and Microsoft to do it? Like, why doesn't Nintendo have to? Nintendo has their own audience. They're going to be fine for another generation or two while they figure out what they're going to do. But that for once, them like being years behind in terms of technology is actually like paying off for them. It only took 20 years of that gamble to pay off.
I also think they're more conservative leadership now is like really looking at what works and what doesn't, and they're going to stick with what works until it doesn't work anymore. It's not like, oh, we're going to go
Well, and they still sell bonkers amounts in Japan, whereas everybody else has
right.
slowed to
And
a
it's like,
crawl.
oh well, okay, they went from GameCube to the DS and the Wii to the Wii U and the 3DS, where glasses free 3D, and now we're at the Switch, right? And that's ironically, the Switch is the most traditional console they've made since the GameCube. um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I think Nintendo knows what works now, and like I said, their conservative leadership is going to continue to do what works and just make it more powerful to appeal to third parties. Because Furukawa, I don't know if how closely you really follow Nintendo, Josh, but for
I don't.
Furukawa, their current president, said that he wants third party support on the Switch, and they're going to try do everything they can to cater to them and see what works and what doesn't. When he was asked about a next gen console, he said the Switch is their primary for 2024. They are talking to third parties to try to figure out how they can continue support in the future. So, uh, you know, that's so Nintendo's kind of
Yeah,
figured it out at this point, but I don't know. It boggles my mind that, like, man, consoles. I feel like we've been having this consoles are going to die out for 20 years. This conversation. So
yeah. So the conversation, I feel like, really didn't pick up steam until a couple years ago. It was at least never as prevalent as it is now. I'll put it that way. There was once upon a time people were jonesing for Halo to be on the DS. So gamers don't always have the best
there was a
ideas.
DS version of Halo. IGN has footage of it.
Okay, I mean, like, in like true
I
like
know,
Xbox
I
360 quality.
know. But man, guys, look up that Halo DS footage. It's wild.
It is something, man. Yeah, I don't know how you can take anything away from this other than, like, the future is really bright and they're gonna keep trying new
Yeah,
shit. Like, that's what businesses have to do to adapt. You have to try new shit if something's not working, and, like, man, you could have a real if you ever get a deal with Steam, because I mean, I think Epic makes a deal in a heartbeat to put the Epic Game Store on there. If you ever make a deal with Steam, then I think that, man, it that's where people are going to go to play. They're going to go to if you're on console, they're going to go to a
yep,
console that has Steam on it,
yeah,
just
and
straight
that
up.
would actually, like, almost eliminate the factor of making putting R&D into a handheld, because you can just say, hey, if your Steam library, you
Yep.
can play on the Steam Deck and the Xbox. So what do you need this for? Man, oh, good,
Good
good
stuff.
stuff.
Good stuff, man.
Man, this shit's getting too complicated for me, Josh. Uh,
Yeah, I feel the same way.
let's go into something that's a little bit easier to talk about here, Josh. Embracer Group. Tell me if you've heard this story before. Selling assets.
Oh, yeah. No, never heard
Yeah,
that. Never talked
yeah.
about that on this show before.
It's been confirmed that Borderlands developer Gearbox has been sold to 2K from Embracer for $460 million, as well as the confirmation of Borderlands 4, which is in development. Unfortunately, there were a few layoffs that happened during this transition.
Their entire
Yeah,
publishing team is gone.
which kind of sucks. But I mean, if you have a publisher, I mean, it sucks, right? Layoffs always suck, right? From a
Yeah, it
from
really sucks. The entire publishing team is gone. I know a lot of the marketing
yeah,
team is gone. The studio, because they published the studio that made Remnant 2, that studio is still a part of Embracer and was not
yeah,
a part of this
Gunfire,
deal.
right, or Airship.
Yeah, so there's some not great things happening around this, but also this I can't believe 2K didn't buy them in the first place. Like, Embracer bought this company for over $1 billion and then sold them for less than half of
Yeah,
what they paid for. That's insane to me. That's
yeah,
absolutely insane. And it's like, this is one of the very few, like, studio purchases of the last few years that just makes sense. Like, okay, so you bought them, but we're never going to be allowed to publish Borderlands games because 2K was never going to give that up. So what was the point in buying them again?
yeah.
I don't think they got a
I
single game
wonder.
out of this deal.
They could have got Duke Nukem. Duke
Oh,
Nukem Forever.
God. I don't think they. I don't. But I'm saying I don't think they published a single game
I don't.
by Embracer
I
in the time
mean,
that they were around in
no,
those
because
couple of
2K
years.
had Tiny Tina. Gearbox did what? Nah, I mean, the only games they did were Tiny Tina and New Tales from the Borderlands, right? They
Yep.
haven't done anything else.
Homeworld. I think
Did
they
they?
did Homeworld 3,
What is?
but I don't. That may
Mm,
have been published by Embracer,
maybe.
but that's something that I know. I know that Gearbox takes
Yeah.
that IP with them. They take that. They take Duke Nukem. They take Brothers in
Yeah.
Arms.
So
What a fucking mess. Did you see the comments from Embracer's president that it's a little too early for us to think about buying another company? Like, motherfucker, if you ever buy another studio, like, nobody should be selling to you at this
here,
point if they care about
here's the
their
thing.
studio.
Embracer should have just stayed in the AA space with like, I mean, Gunfire Games and Airship Syndicate are two studios that are perfect for them, right? You got Darksiders, you got Remnant, you got Battle Chasers, right? Like those types of AA experiences that you know low mid budget. Kingdoms of Amalur, that IP is with Embracer. You have that mid tier budget. These games that are mid to high quality, depending on what your audience is. You're gonna sell a million units maybe, and that's that, right? I mean, and then they started getting into the AAA space, which really fucked them up, and trying
Mm-hmm.
to rely on that Saudi money that was pulled, like that was.
Dude, they bought so many studios so quickly, and it was so unsustainable. Like, we all knew it. It was so
Yeah,
unsustainable.
everybody knew it except for them, apparently.
Everybody
Yeah,
got the memo
yeah,
except them.
yeah. They did not, as the kids say, understand the assignment.
No, not at all. Not even a little bit.
Oh man, so
What a
but
catastrophe.
I guess I'm happy for Gearbox.
Yeah, I'm happy for Gearbox. I feel really bad for their
Yeah,
publishing team though, because they did nothing wrong at all here. They worked on a surprise like Game of the Year
yeah,
nominee last year, and this was their
yeah.
reward.
The other game they published was Solar Ash. Was that other game they published?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
Solar
like
Ash was
Solar
awesome.
Ash. Okay.
So yeah, hope everybody affected lands on their feet soon, finds something. So all right, Josh. Other layoffs. Certain Affinity
This
lays
one
off
surprised
25
me.
people in the company's first mass layoff in history.
I was very surprised by this one.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest.
This was like I didn't know how I thought I didn't I thought Certain Affinity was like doing good. I thought that was like their whole thing, right? Like Iron Galaxy, they're like, we
So
take on projects so we don't have to lay people off type thing.
yeah, I want to read specifically from what Max Hoberman wrote about this, who is the director of Certain Affinity. Over the past 12 months, the games industry has faced unprecedented challenges. We're no exception. We made the extremely difficult decision to inform 25 of our US based employees their jobs are being eliminated. This has the most impact on teams running our business operations. There are multiple factors underlying this decision to do a layoff for the first time in our 17-year history. Most significant is an industry wide slowdown in the funding of new lead and co-development projects and the reluctance of third-party investors to fund games or game companies. This has made it exceptionally difficult to sign new work or secure other forms of funding. Our current focus is on our team and the well-being of those most impacted, who we are supporting with severance pay and benefits continuation. We are also making their vested awards under our stock equity plan portable so they may benefit from the company's success in the future. That, if you're going to lay people off, that's a pretty good way to be doing this. Like, they're still going to keep their vested options in the company, and so that if the company is successful, like if and when the company is successful in the future and profitable, they still benefit from that. That is a very kind gesture that I don't know that I've ever seen before. That is not something that they had to do. And yeah, so I'm very impressed by them, but he's not wrong. The fact that they're specifically saying new lead and co-development projects are hard for us to find means, yeah, like, I think outside the work from Microsoft's going to keep giving them work because, like, hey, you're co-developing Halo for us at this point, and at one point they were working on Perfect Dark. Like, they may throw them another bone, they may throw them another project, but I don't know when that's going to be, and I don't think Microsoft does either. Like, maybe Gears 6,
Gears 6 multiplayer stuff,
because they've worked on multiplayer maps for Gears before.
Doom, like, I mean, they did
Call of Duty.
Oh yeah,
they have a history with Call of Duty too.
Yeah, I mean, they could do a few things, but it's just like, man, this sucks.
This isn't great. This is a studio that I thought was pretty safe. If we're being totally honest, I thought they were fairly safe. Now, granted, they haven't worked on Call of Duty in a very long time, but you know, you could always come back to it. Games they've worked on recently. They have worked on, of course, they're co-developing Halo right now. They've worked on Call of Duty. They did some support work on Hogwarts Legacy, Prey, Gotham Knights, Doom, Crackdown 3, New World. So, yeah, I would assume that, like, their Halo is going to be the main thing that they're still working on. They do have a few things that they've been developing on privately. They have 2 games in the works, and I believe Microsoft is publishing one of those. So I'm interested to see how it keeps going, because that seems to be a mutually beneficial partnership.
We'll find out. Again, hope all those affected find something, land on their feet. It sucks.
Yeah,
it really sucks. The last major story here, Josh: Toys for Bob and Microsoft ink a deal for a new game, and a lot of theories is that it's Spyro 4.
I think it's going to be an original IP. I'm just going to say it. I think it's an original IP. I know what their statement said when they broke off from Microsoft. You know, our horns are at the ready or whatever. I don't think this is Spyro.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it.
I'm going to be the naysayer. I'm going to be the naysayer.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be some sort of cartoony platformer.
My guess is that it's an original IP, so that they have an IP to take with them, because they don't own anything.
Yeah,
the Crash and Spyro rights stayed with Xbox.
Yeah, because they're Activision IP, right? So,
yes. And I mean, Microsoft was never going to give those up. Let's be honest.
Spyro and Crash are too big to give away. So, man, I don't know what this is going to be, but good for them. I mean, this was kind of hinted at like a while ago, right? They were open to what we talked about on the last episode, I think, where they were open to a deal with Microsoft.
Yeah, it was like not even a month ago we talked about this.
Yeah,
so great mutually beneficial move for them. This is one that I'm a little surprised Microsoft didn't fight to hold on to, because that's a studio that fills something that they don't have. But at the same time, you know, maybe that's a sign that Microsoft's more willing to throw work like that towards Mojang. Mojang has said for a long time they want to be known as more than just the Minecraft studio. Give Mojang Viva Pinata, damn it. My pipe dream is, though, that Toys for Bob makes Banjo-Kazooie. That's always going to be my pipe dream. Even if it's just an HD remaster, I would love it. You're throwing them some work. Cool. Yeah. Great partnership. This is what I said I wanted to see Microsoft do more of, is partner with studios and publish games rather than buying the studios. So, and this isn't the first time they've done this. They did this with Twisted Pixel also a long time ago. They owned them and then they let them go, but they still published their games until that absolutely god-awful Loco Cycle game.
Well, you know, man, Loco Cycle, man, what a interesting
disaster.
We'll say interesting choice.
I'm glad you think so.
I was trying to be nice about it, Josh. Speaking of nice, Josh, let's get into some of this what we like to call DLC, smaller stories.
Let's do it.
So apparently playing Diablo 4 via Game Pass is a disaster on PC. Have you heard this, Josh? Where you have to link your Battle.net account to your Xbox account and then somehow link your Game Pass to your Battle.net account?
So that doesn't surprise me. that doesn't surprise me. This is really convoluted. You've always had to have BattleNet to play Activision games online, so I don't know why that part is surprising. This to me screams like a lot of people who have never played a game through BattleNet before. So yeah, there will probably be a better, more streamlined way to do this in the future. We've long suspected that they're going to use the BattleNet servers for the Microsoft Store going forward on PC to make this easier. This, I think this is kind of a nothing burger. I understand that people are the thing that I find very funny though is now BattleNet wants to launch every time they boot up their PCs. That is personally hilarious to me.
That's funny, man. Look, that's why I play on Xbox, man. Just it's there. I can just play it. I'm already logged in. I'm already hooked up. Already attached. I don't know how that all works. It just works for me.
It just works for him, chat.
For some reason is working for people, Josh, is this Marvel Rivals game that's been announced.
This is literally Overwatch. Let me copy your homework.
No, it's third person, Josh.
Overwatch, let me copy your homework. This looks interesting, but I need to see more. I need to see actual gameplay. I want to play the beta test. But also, I'm really curious to see what the monetization looks like, because this is from NetEase. If you don't know what NetEase has made, Diablo Immortal should give you a clue. Jeez. So, not a lot of hope there, honestly. I remain interested. I think it's actually a really cool cast of characters that they have for this game. I'm very intrigued. Bruce Banner running around with a gun, maybe not like the greatest thing in the world, but
I mean,
he's shooting nuclear fusion at people through a pistol.
Who wants to play as the Hulk when you can play as Bruce Banner? Next, you're going to tell me you can play as Tony Stark without his Iron Man suit, or
that'd be pretty crazy.
Captain America with the trash can lid.
Jesus Christ. I'm actually interested in this game. It's just I'm very skeptical of anything published or created by NetEase at this point.
Good times. Also, we kind of already talked about this. The all digital white Series X is allegedly leaked.
It looks like a 1996 Hewlett Packard PC.
Yeah, it looks like
it looks terrible.
Gateway PC my dad brought home in the Cal box.
God, dude, this thing genuinely looks atrocious.
Yeah, it's something.
It is in fact something. I'm not super jazzed about this, but I do suspect that this is replacing the base Series X.
Yeah.
So,
well, Josh, we did it. Unless there's anything you found during the show that we missed. Yeah.
Corey, are you playing anything fun?
No, I'm not playing anything. I have been in this.
Corey is not playing any video games currently.
The last week and a half has been so busy for me, like between PAX and like getting all these.
That's fair.
Videos out and trying to. I don't know, man. Every time I sit down to play something, I'm just like, fuck, I'm too tired. I'm so tired. And then my kids have been sick and up all night, and it's not a great time to try to play video games, Josh.
That's fair. If you
want to enjoy your entertainment, do not have children, everybody. That's pro tip.
Do not have children, everybody. Straight from a father of two.
Your tool.
Jesus Christ. All right.
I have
with that. Nope. With that.
I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode of Xbox Casuals, the Xbox podcast. You can see it or hear it every other Tuesday. Check out Tower Casuals, our sister podcast, every Thursday or Friday. We record on Thursday. So, Josh, again, thank you for your time tonight, as always. Where can we find you?
Always. Twitter, Josh_Finn, 2 N's. It's the playoff push, baby. I'm very excited about my Mavericks right now.
Playoff push.
Very, very excited about my beloved Dallas Mavericks.
Indeed.
Luka for MVP.
You can find me at IamCoreyHD. You can follow us at Tower Casuals. You can check out YouTube. All that stuff. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you.